Today, we're going to talk about something disturbing I found out, and that is most Christian organizations believe and teach that Jesus is actually not the Son of God, and that he's actually pretending to be the Son of God, and God the Father is actually playing the role of a father and is pretending essentially to be a father. So the position of the son and the position of the father is just a mere matter of choosing, almost like a movie. But is this biblical? Can we find this in the scriptures? So come with me while we go to Proverbs because we have to prove all things. So come with me and let's go to Proverbs chapter 8, if you could find it. And I'm going to start at verse 22. And I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'm going to encourage you to read it on your own. This is Christ talking about himself. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. In verse 24, it continued saying, when there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water, before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth. This is Christ talking about himself and say, I was brought forth. Now the big question is, who was he brought forth from? Who? He came from, Christ is saying, I came from something, I was brought forth. And the Bible answers that question. In John 3, verse 16, it says, for God so loved the world that he gave his what? His only begotten Son. For whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. So here, John 3, verse 16 talks about God having a son and giving his son that he brought forth, his begotten. And begotten means to come out of, to bring forth. So you see, the Bible even answers itself. Line upon line, scriptures upon scriptures. And so, the question is, why is it then that so many Christians believe that Jesus is not the Son of God and that he's pretending to be the Son of God? I'm going to give you the reason. And the reason is because Satan actually hates Christ. He wants to separate us from Christ. He wants to separate us from believing who Christ is. Because the same Bible says, it asks in Thessalonians, it says, who overcometh the world? He who believed that Jesus is the Son of God. You know who's prince of this world? Satan is prince of this world. He's a prince of this world. He's not from the kingdom of heaven. He was in the kingdom of heaven, but right now he was cast out. And now he's a prince of this world. And so because Satan doesn't want us to overcome him through Christ, he separates us from Christ. And in order to do that, he instilled a doctrine in our minds for us to believe that Jesus is not the Son of God. Because here's what Jesus said to Peter. He was talking to his disciples. And he says, who do men say I am? And Peter said, well, some says, you're a prophet. Some says that you're a good man. And Peter says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus said, it is not flesh or blood that revealed this to you. And he went on to say that on this rock, on this doctrine, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. The gates of hell shall not prevail against it. That is the core foundation of Christianity. The core foundation is that Jesus is the Son of God. And if we don't accept Jesus as the Son of God, if we fail to accept him as the Son of God, if we reject that he's the Son of God, it means that we are not members of his church. If we reject the only gift that God gave to us, his Son, that sacrifice, essentially it will be impossible for us to become a beneficiary of that gift. And that is Satan's plan, to prevent us from becoming a beneficiary of that gift. And so it is so important for us to study the scriptures for ourselves. It's so important for us to talk to God for ourselves, to have a personal relationship with him, to believe his word. And it says, when God says, I gave a son, that God had a son to give in the beginning. Because you know what, guys? If Jesus is not the real Son of God, and God did not really give a son, and he's not a real father, and this one is not a real son, who is to tell that we are actually sons and daughters of God? Are we playing a role as well? Is the plan of salvation all a made-up movie? You see, when Satan starts something, he doesn't tell you the end result. He didn't tell Eve everything what would have happened if she ate the fruit. The destruction, the chaos, the pain. No. He starts out one way, but there's an end goal. So instead of listening to our pastors and preachers and priests and leaders, let us take up this Bible for ourselves. And ask God to just guide us as we go along and reveal himself to us. Because this is the core doctrine that we need to believe to overcome the world. In the book of John, it says, this is life eternal, that they may know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. Let us seek to know who God is. It's not a mystery. Let us seek to know who Jesus is. He's not a mystery. He's given us all we need in this world, in this Bible. And if it is in the Bible, it means that he wants us to know. Let's take him at his word. Let's not call God a liar. Let's not call Jesus a liar. It is better to put our trust in God than to put our trust in men. So when you have the time, take up your Bibles and say, Christ, I want to find the truth. I want to know who you are. Please reveal yourself to me. Until next time, take care.